No, I'm kidding.
That's funny.
uh,
Okay, so recording started, and
Welcome back to Cut and Splice. This is Jason,
and Matt,
this is Gil.
and tonight we're talking about the 1986 movie Aliens by James Cameron. Obviously, the sequel to Alien, and possibly one of the greatest movies ever made, despite what I'm sure we're going to hear from the other two.
Yeah, I guess that's why we're talking about it. Because some consider it one of the greatest movies ever made.
And that's all we really need to say. It just is. That's the podcast. Thanks.
And much like the tagline of the movie, "This time it's war."
Oh
I
wow!
guess
I just saw that right now.
I guess Matt has some thoughts, but I guess I don't know if Matt, your thoughts are more like spoiler based or review based.
I'll get more into it during the spoiler portion. I don't disagree that it's a good movie. I mean, I'm going to give it a positive review. I just feel like Jar Jar Abrams watched this movie and thought, holy fuck, I can make an entire career off of this.
Mm.
And yeah, we can get into this later in the episode, but I mean, it's a good action movie. It's an 80s movie that proves that you don't have to go full woke in order to have a really strong, compelling female lead in an action movie. The cinematography is great. The action sequences are great.
Stan Winston's special effects are like
Yeah,
impeccable.
Michael Bean's. I love Michael Bean. I mean, like that guy is one of the most underrated actors ever. So, and Sigourney Weaver to channel old people on Family Guy is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a great movie, and I'm not going to pan it. There are just certain aspects of the movie that kind of creep in and bother me.
As far as my reaction to it, uh, it was better this time. Um, it exceeded my expectations, because this is
That's
why.
good to hear.
Yeah, I because when I looked at my rating back then, it was average. I gave it a 7, and I think at the time I felt like, this is an okay action movie. It's a pretty good action movie, maybe even slightly above average, but not that much. Much like what Matt is saying is at the time I thought it was just bigger and badder, like bigger and better than what Alien was. Oh, we had one alien. Let's add an S and have multiple of them,
Plural.
and have guns and have this and have that. And that's all I thought it was at the time, the last time I saw it. But this time around, and we did watch the special edition, so I don't know if that added a bit more, um, you know, nuance to the story or more scenes that built the what was going on story wise.
I would say it did, but
But
continue.
I did realize that it's more than that, that it was trying to be more than that. And looking back at it, even back then, I think that even though I didn't notice it as much, all that stuff, all those motifs and stuff were there and the themes. It's just that I didn't put as much emphasis on them as I did this time because I was really trying to keep to pay close attention. And there's some cool stuff here, like from what, like I've this is the first time I've actually made notes before, like while watching the movie, because I felt like I just don't want to. A few recordings recently, I felt like I forget things. I was like, I noticed like little like Easter eggs, like there's some Kubrick Easter eggs, like he uses the music from 2001. I
Yeah.
think the music that plays while they're like on the spinning thing spaceship in 2001, he uses it in the beginning of this movie and
Yeah.
in the end credits. And there's the tricycle scene with one of
Yeah,
the
I
kids.
thought about the tricycle too.
That was totally like The Shining. And yeah, there's definitely like a lot of touches. I think there was one line in there, something about Close Encounters, which was a throw
Yeah.
line to like Spielberg, because
Mhm.
that movie came like in the late 70s. So it was definitely like in a way, this was the movie that James Cameron made after Terminator. And I do feel like Terminator, he really honed in on trying to make the best possible movie that he could. And here he was really having fun while still not losing sight. Like he was throwing everything in this while still not losing sight that he still needs to tell a very good story. So I give him props for that, for sure. And he threw in the whole Sarah Connor thing with Sigourney and and Michael Biehn. I felt like it was a very like the
Yeah.
vibe there was very reminiscent of
Well, especially
Terminator.
I shouldn't say that too much to spoiler thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but we can get to that. But yeah, so I mean, going straight into it, as far as like my rating of it, I think I would have to bump it up to an 8. That I feel it's above average action movie, but whether or not it's a 9 or a 10, which I guess is what a lot of people rated, because it's number 66 of all time on IMDb, which is, you
Should
know,
be higher.
yeah, should be lower, should be
Come
lower.
on.
But yes, I definitely don't think it's as high as people rate it to be, but it's better than I thought. So that's my verdict this time around.
Cool.
I would go 7.5, but yeah.
I forgot to think about the rating thing ahead of time, but considering when we talked about our 11 to 20 movies, I'm pretty sure I put this in my top 10, so it's probably a 10.
Oh wow, that's your first 10, right?
I
On
I
this.
don't know. I'm not sure if it was the first or not, but
Oh, I mean, like on
also
Yeah,
this
yeah,
podcast.
no, I know. That's what I mean. I'm not. I thought I might have said something else was, but whether I did or not, there really isn't much I would change.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that that would be the second 10 on the podcast overall after I gave Come and See a 10.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Well, I
Yeah,
think
so
I gave Princess Bride a 10, but I said that I could see myself demoting it to a 9 or something.
Yeah.
all
But
right.
yeah.
One thing I wanted to say before we went into the other stuff was just that talking about the because I don't think that any of this would be spoilers, but just kind of talking about the fact that we watched the special edition, the director's cut, I believe.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's an interesting thing because the bulk of what's added is in the front part of the movie. If I remember correctly, all the stuff that shows Newt's family on the planet on LV-42 whatever, that stuff was all added. Everything that you see was added back in where the people are talking about getting orders to go check out that site and everything like that. And then the stuff with Ripley was probably twice as long. Everything before she gets on the ship and goes. They added back, I should say, because they've obviously filmed all of it ahead of time. But they put back in all the stuff about her daughter and all that stuff that kind of sets up her journey throughout the film. Really, was largely set up in scenes that they took out for the theatrical cut. And then other than that, really, it's just a few of the more technical things like the scene with the little automated turret guns that they put in the hallways later on in the movie. That stuff
Uh-huh.
was added back in. I really like that scene a lot. I just thought it worth mentioning. I don't think a perfect version of this movie exists because I mean, pretty close to perfect is the one we watched, the director's cut. But I I think the stuff with Newt's parents adds a little bit to the story, like when you see the two people talking in the office or whatever. But I don't feel like we need the introduction of her character until she's found later. I don't think that any of that. I think that stuff really drags the movie down a bit. It's a little slow and drawn out. And we just spent a lot of time with Ripley and going through everything that she's going through, and it just takes a while for the movie to get going. So taking out that extra, it's probably like 4 minutes or something. I don't know, maybe less, but it feels like a lot. The whole stuff with Newt's family. If you could take that part out and leave everything else that's in the director's cut in, that would probably be, in my mind, like the perfect version of this movie.
Yeah, it does seem like you
Oh,
could trim some of that stuff, but it does feel like, especially if you say that some of the Ripley stuff in the beginning and setting up her daughter,
Yeah,
that she left behind and all that, that was really crucial thematically
really crucial, right? And
to
they
later
stripped
on.
all that out for the theatrical cut.
Yeah, so
yeah.
and that's a good thing to bring up before we go into spoilers and everything, is that it's these director's cut and special editions and final cuts and redux and all these
Redux.
things. it's it's sad because yes, to some degree, and sometimes they are overly long and you feel like the theatrical version was good enough, but at other times, like specifically this movie, this was felt more like an action movie the first time I saw it, and now it felt more like a story that just happened to be wrapped around an action movie, much like Alien was a movie, a horror movie slash science fiction slash this slash that. Like it was more than just it tried to do more than just be within its genre.
Had a lot of
Like,
substance.
yeah, I had a lot of substance. I mean, Alien not too much, but I'm just saying it was basically trying to be more than just one thing. It was trying to do a few things, and this as well. Like it's at its core, it's yeah. Never mind, I won't go into it, but we'll get to it with the spoilers. But in case it is a spoiler, but but
Well,
but yeah, I feel like those few scenes that you had in the beginning, even one that could have been trimmed a bit, I feel like really set up things correctly. But it's unfortunate that theatrically, and this is why we said at some point in one of our talks that you should just have intermission and have slightly longer movies.
right? Yeah.
Then it'll be more acceptable. But yeah, there are cases where the director's cut is a bit too long and not necessary to some degree. But here, I really think it benefited the movie. I definitely agree.
Do you guys
Yeah.
have any strong feelings about where this would go in James Cameron's filmography hierarchy? Because I put it at number two after Terminator 2.
Yeah,
Oh,
Terminator 2 is definitely the top one for me.
it's definitely better than Titanic. My last bowel movement was better than Titanic, but
Oh my god.
It wasn't that bad, but
No, I mean considering that it was the highest grossing movie of all time when it came out. I think of Titanic as being grossly overrated, but I don't think it's a bad movie. It's just kind of like it's a chick flick with a lot of drama and stuff like that. It's pretty good.
right. It's the highest grossing movie of all time because it made girls' jinies tickle. I mean, that's
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
yeah, it was also a very elaborate movie, and they put a lot of detail into it. But yes, it's not a great movie, for sure. There's no doubt that it's not a. It shouldn't have won the Oscar.
It's a little bit better than Piranha 2.
If as far as my ratings,
marginally.
I think
Piranha 2 is a good movie.
I think I would go Terminator 2, and you know what? I mean, I think I gotta go True Lies as number
Great
two,
movie.
and it would be a toss between, now that I've bumped Aliens to 8, it would be a toss between The Abyss and Aliens for number 3,
Mm-hmm.
3 and 4, I guess. And of his movies that I've seen, I really feel like Avatar and Titanic. Oh, I guess Avatar I give a 7 and Titanic I give a 6. So Avatar and Titanic, those are the ones that I've seen. Oh, actually, never mind. And this is the funny thing about James Cameron. It's Terminator 1 is such a forgettable movie after Terminator 2. So I did rate the Terminator 7. So I guess that falls somewhere there with Titanic. Avatar, sorry. Avatar and Terminator 1 together, and then Titanic last, I guess, of the ones that I've seen of his.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that I would put Terminator 2 and The Abyss above Aliens. Other than that, I think it's pretty much it's Aliens and then Dances with Smurfs.
Wow.
And the Terminator, 50 Miles of Crap, and then Titanic.
Wow.
Not that I have any strong feelings, but you know.
I'd
Okay.
probably go Terminator 2 and then Aliens, then Terminator, and then very closely behind that, True Lies, and then The Abyss, then Avatar, and then Piranha 2: The Spawning.
Oh, I forgot True Lies. Sorry, but that's True Lies is above the Mile of Crap.
Oh, okay.
So
I just
it's funny. So he made a career out of making sequels, huh?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, yeah.
right, which is something that I'm going to rant about after we allow spoilers. So, yeah.
Spoiler time.
Okay, spoiler time. Yeah, if you want to go first, Matt.
The thing that bothers me about Aliens isn't actually just it isn't really a fault of Aliens. It isn't a fault of James Cameron, because James Cameron actually went into the movie and actually made a decent movie. The problem is that J.J. Abrams probably watched this movie and thought, holy fuck, this is the formula for making shit movies and making bajillions of dollars doing it. Because all you need to do, like James Cameron comes in after Alien, which is a really good, terrifying horror movie, and he just takes the alien in that movie and says, what if there are like 150 of them? Oh, yeah, that's going to be awesome, right? So J.J. Abrams comes in and he's going to make the next Star Wars. Hey, you know what's even more intimidating than a space station that's the size of a small moon that can blow up a planet? How about a space station that's the size of a full planet that can blow up like 7 planets? Oh, yeah. $200 million. Fuck it, make it, do it. Hey, you know what's even more intimidating than a Star Destroyer? How about like 1,000 Star Destroyers? And they've all got these like penis guns under them, and they can all blow up a planet. Oh, yeah. Here's $250 million. Go for it. I mean, it just drives me nuts because I mean, James Cameron did actually manage to make a good movie out of this formula, but so many other people have taken this formula and managed to package it into multi-million-dollar pieces of shit.
Well, I mean, James Cameron does what James Cameron does because
Gil,
James
damn it, Gil.
Cameron.
You, yeah, I was literally looking for the quote right now. I was like,
No, it's funny.
Matt
The whole
set that
time
up so
Matt was saying
beautifully.
that. The whole time he's saying that. Every time he's saying
Oh
James Cameron, I was like, is he
gosh.
gonna like work that in there? I was waiting for him to work that.
I don't remember the exact quote, but it's so beautiful.
James Cameron doesn't do what James Cameron does because for James Cameron. James Cameron does what James Cameron does because James Cameron is James Cameron.
Because James Cameron is James Cameron.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
pretty much.
I guess in that case we should get like Jason's perspective. So, well, what are your thoughts? Like, why do you like it so much?
Well, for starters, let me just say that Matt, you're not gonna have me disagreeing at all with the problems of the Disney Star Wars trilogy. I mean, especially the J.J. Abrams movies. Obviously, I agree with you on virtually all of those aspects of those movies. I'm not 100% sure if I would lay the blame on this movie specifically for creating that formula, because many, many, many mediocre to bad sequels that have ever been made are basically, let's do the same thing bigger. You know, as far as why I love it, I mean, gosh, where to start? I mean, it's such a solid script. It's like, I know they've said, James Cameron has said in interviews and things that, he wanted to try his hardest to make sure that it still felt like it was the same universe and really the same story, the same everything, the same feel of the movie as the first one that Ridley Scott made. But he wanted to tell a very different kind of story. So it's less of a horror film and more of an action movie for sure. But it doesn't feel like it's, entirely separated from that first movie. It feels like a pretty logical, follow up to it. But yeah, instead of the movie itself focusing more on the suspense and horror aspects of it, it's more of a exciting thrill ride kind of thing with some horror elements in there still, of course. But yeah, I just think it's so solid. I think it's really incredible how we get to see the transformation of her character, who was always very, um, in the first movie. She's spoilers for Alien if you've never seen it, but I mean, she's the only one who makes it because she's, among other things, she's resourceful, and she keeps her head during this horrible situation that they're in. And from the first scenes where they find the alien, she's the one making the smart decisions, you know. And that movie's so great because, unlike most horror movies, even the people who make dumb decisions are making decisions that you can totally understand them making because of the characters they've established. They seem like logical things that those people would do in their situation. And
Yeah.
she's wiser and more cautious than most of them, and she ends up making it because she's determined and she's resourceful and she's a survivor and whatever else,
She's gonna make it. All right.
and you take that character, and then he takes this movie and it grows more and more and more of her character out into this really incredible thing. And I don't know, I wanted to kind of say this. It's a weird thing to bring up, but it's a weird sort of thing I think that James Cameron was doing in the 80s was, I don't know, I'm trying to think if there's a third example of this or not, but um, once he got real big off of Terminator, I know he worked as like he worked on a whole bunch of scripts. They said for years in Hollywood, and he was one of the writers that did a lot of the stuff on First Blood Part 2. And I found that
Mhm.
interesting, an interesting comparison to this, because in both cases, like you said, Gil, he's working on sequels. In that movie, also, I feel like most people would agree that First Blood is less of an action movie and more of a anti-war drama with a lot of action in it. They took that first movie where Stallone played this really interesting vet with all sorts of problems, and then the second movie, they took everything that they built with that first one, and they're like, okay, now let's make an action movie with this guy, and that's what he did. He wrote a bunch of stuff for that movie, and then with this one, he just took the character and the setting and everything that they did with the first movie and built upon it to create this other interesting thing. Obviously, I think this movie's a lot better than Rambo First Blood Part 2, which is probably should go down in history as one of the worst titles for a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely, one thing I'll give him credit is that he doesn't only makes it bigger and better, he's trying to tell his own story within it. Like you said, a few things of the note that I said, also to give him props as far as like getting things right in movies, which often are gotten wrong, is like a couple of things. Video calls. They did a video call in this movie, and correctly, the people don't look at the camera. They're looking off at the screen while the camera that's recording them is slightly off to the side, which is what it would be. Like he saw this, like he foresaw the future, that like this would be an issue. You can't look at the camera, you can look at the screen, but the screen is not what's recording you. So people wouldn't be looking directly at the lens.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I would say. And also there was a scene near the end that someone's falling through glass. I think it was Michael Bean or something, but like, you know what he does? And like William Peterson in Manhunter, he shoots the glass and then jumps through it.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't just jumps through it. So it's little touches like that where you really kind of see James Cameron thinking. Like he's really like, he's not just like, let's make it bigger and better. Like he's really thinking this through. Like, does this make sense? Does the way this action play out make sense? And then story-wise, what I was holding back, like in the beginning, and it's very apparent, like as you watch the movie, he made it a movie about motherhood. Like Ripley loses the opportunity to raise her daughter. And what happens? She goes off to this planet and she finds an orphan that she can be a mother to. And what happens later? She discovers that there's a queen. And the queen is a mother, the queen of the xenomorphs, the alien queen. And then she can relate to her, which is how she gets away with it. And I have some issues with how she gets away with it. But, it's her, the fact that she's a female is the reason why she survives. That because she understood the queen alien on some level and was able to get away with that. And another nice touch that he has there is, if you notice, it's not just Ripley. There's also the Marine female, soldiers.
Vasquez.
Yeah, and if you notice, all the women characters in this movie stay calm under pressure. While Bill Paxton and the lieutenant,
Game over, man.
like the lieutenant too, like the guy who
Gorman.
Yeah, like they all lose their cool under pressure. But Ripley, Newt, Vasquez, they're
even
all,
to a lesser extent, even the pilot of the dropship.
Yes, her too. Like
she doesn't get them killed. The co-pilot gets them killed, and the last thing that she does when she sees the thing about to get her, she reaches for her gun rather than trying to, run away or scream or something.
Yeah, no, and this is all intentional. This is James Cameron telling a story. He thought about this. He thought of what story he wanted to tell within the set of characters that he had and the situation that he had. And that's the mark of a good filmmaker. That's why he's James Cameron, because it's more than just bigger and better. He really wanted to say something, and maybe it did get lost a little bit in the theatrical version because it was a bit more rushed, even though it's not, a high level of storytelling and it's not anything earth-shattering thematically. It's just the fact that he said, like, hey, let's connect all these dots. We got a female protagonist. We got an alien species. let's start to think, like, how do you like make that connection? Like, why does she have an advantage? Oh, maybe there's a queen, like an ant colony, and blah blah blah, and this and that. This is all like really good stuff. That's what a good storyteller should do. And I agree with Matt that it's definitely not something that J.J. Abrams does in his movies.
Yeah, and just to interject briefly, I mean that is the fundamental difference between Cameron and Jar Jar Abrams is that Cameron actually does think things through. I mean, Abrams is basically me as a 13-year-old thinking, oh, well, they just made this big movie called Armageddon with an asteroid the size of Texas. Why not just make it the size of Alaska?
Yeah.
I mean that's more awesome, right? Let's do that. And yeah, I mean James Cameron would be smart enough to say, no, let's not do that.
I never saw the movie. I'm curious to see if either of you guys did, but what you're talking about, Matt, has me thinking about when I saw the trailer for Independence Day Resurgence or whatever the sequel to Independence Day was. That's the first thing I thought of was like, okay, well, I'm not seeing much in the way of storytelling here. I am seeing that they're clearly showing in the trailers that the alien ships are now like 10 times bigger.
I did not see it.
I don't like to talk trash
Uh,
about stuff I didn't see, but it looked pretty bad.
yeah, I mean, I generally want to see everything that Brent Spiner is in, but no, I didn't do that one. So
Yeah,
yeah,
me neither.
Wait, Brent
I mean,
Spiner's in the sequel?
yeah.
I thought he died in the first one.
So did I.
Wow. Well, again, I don't like to trash something I haven't seen, but I mean it did get pretty bad reviews, I think.
isn't it the second time they killed Brent Spiner, like in Star Trek 2, and they bring him back? It's good thing about being brought back.
I think so.
Oh, I mean, at this point, they've killed Picard once, and they've brought him back. Uh, it's
Oh,
uh,
I remember. I had forgotten about that movie, but you're right. You're talking about the end of Nemesis or something?
yeah.
I forgot about that.
In any case,
But
one thing I should say about Aliens, to not forget. So, one, I wanted to get your thoughts about this. When in that moment when she threatens the eggs in front of the queen, and then the queen calls off her
Her
hench,
Sentinels.
yeah, her sentinels, her guards. But then Ripley ends up blowtorching the eggs in spite of that right before she escapes. I don't know why, but I can understand or excuse it, but I feel like it would make her a better character if she hadn't done that. Like, I know that story wise it's important for her to do that, because then the queen will chase her, and then she'll make it onto the ship, and then we'll have the whole altercation and the climax in the end. But I really felt like it would have been a stronger movie if she hadn't done that.
Interesting.
Like,
yeah,
if something stupid, like if there was another character with her, like, could say Bill Paxton or someone that, like, ended up, like, messing the whole thing up and shooting the eggs, and then they would make a run for it, or something, or even Newt making some weird mistake and stepping on one of the eggs. But for some reason, I feel like Ripley was better than that. Like, that she, in spite of the fact that she's planning on nuking, the alien, once they get to orbit, I felt like that there was a moment there of understanding of, like, hey, we're just taking care of our own, so let's leave it at that, and then make your next chess move. Like, instead of like blowing everything up and then there's going to be a chase will ensue. So Yeah, I don't know why that rubbed me the wrong way.
I get what you're
No,
saying because
no,
that scene is really good, where they kind
I
of
mean,
are in a standoff.
it rubbed me the wrong way too, and it's not so much that Ripley. I get why Ripley as a character made that decision. I mean, she was already established as just nuke the whole fucking place and make sure that they're all dead. But strategically, that was a really dumb move.
Yeah,
Yes, and I do wonder if I try to rationalize it, it's also an impulsive move on her part. It's because now that she was safe, the Sentinels are gone, so she can probably get away. She wanted to do something spiteful, um, to make the mother feel pain, because this alien species has basically forced her to lose her motherhood. Like, she never got a chance to raise her own kid, and she's also avenging all the crew members from Alien, from the first movie, that their lives were lost. Like, it was all that stuff was percolating to the surface, and she felt like she needed to like have direct revenge, not just nuke her from afar. So I think that's what was going on there, but still, I don't know why it's an imperfect scene for me.
I think Gil's interpretation is correct because you got that scene with Burke at the beginning where he not so subtly tells her like I think this will be good for you. Come on the mission. Don't worry, you'll be safe. Blah 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 blah. And then he kind of says right before she interrupts him, he says something like about facing the past or something like that, which implies that like she's got to gain some sort of catharsis from this experience, kind of thing. And so
Mhm.
yeah, she's probably acting very impulsively.
Also, just to point out one sniveling, money grubbing bad character in the movie is a Jew. So, take with that what you want, but that was just something
Interesting.
that stuck out to me.
Although
Hey,
I will say it does seem like, I definitely felt like, because also this was the first time I've watched this since I've read the article about, like, Tarantino at some point was interviewed, and he there was an article that he said like that one of the movies that were the most monumental thing when he was like a young adult, going to the movies in LA, he said was Aliens. He said like that was a movie that like everybody like had such high expectations for. Like, we were expecting it to be like a great movie, and then we went to see it, and it was not great. It was perfect. It was amazing. Like, it blew the roof off. So I'm imagining Tarantino like in 1986, like,
On
in the theater, like, when that scene, once she gets on the, that's like definitely Avengers
the
level.
loader.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
the loader, and she says like, "Get away from her, bitch," or something. Like, I can totally see that being like a standing ovation type
Oh
of
yeah.
like, moment in theaters, and which I never got to experience because I was too young. But yeah, so I can see why this movie has had an impact. Whether it's like, Tarantino's generation or maybe other generations, but for some
Yeah.
reason didn't click to me until now. As far as like,
As long as we're talking about some of the positive aspects, you mentioned that scene at the end, which is like the very end of the movie. It's so great, where the queen comes back for the last final battle, kind of thing, and it's the two mothers fighting over the daughter, kind of thing. It's I love this movie. Should be shown to like film students to like explain how to make a movie, because in the beginning of the movie it feels like it's all just tone and setting up like an environment or whatever, but they spend so much time. They have all these nice tracking shots when the characters are in hypersleep right before they wake up, and it's showing you the layout of everything that we need to see geographically to understand what's going to be happening in that final fight scene. you've got like these shots of the docking bay, and they're showing the loader. They're showing how big it is in comparison to the landing craft. And then when they set up the fact that she can't get a job anymore as a pilot, so she's working on docks, like in loading stuff with forklifts and loaders. So she's got a license, she's got plenty of experience using these things, and she's loading the missiles onto the ship and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a nice way to set everything up that's going to happen later.
Yeah, it doesn't come from out of nowhere. The script definitely, yeah, like I noticed it when I was watching it because I remembered the climax. Like he asks her, like the Paul Reiser character says, like, "What are you gonna be doing here?" Like, "Oh, I saw you were doing the whole loading thing," and then I was like, I wonder if that's the only time in the script they're gonna bring it up. And then she loads the missiles on the
Yeah.
with the Marines. Is like, this is good screenwriting. Like you just really want to set all those things up so when she does it in the end, it's not like, hey, what the fuck? How does she know how to do that?
Yeah.
Like, so no, it's definitely
Like Jeff Bridges' character in the end of Iron Man.
I barely remember.
No big deal.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any other touches like that. I think there was a few things.
Well, one
But
thing it's not that kind of a thing, but I just think it's kind of cool. I've heard people say that they really didn't like certain things like effects and stuff, but I think they're crazy because it all looks so good, especially the Stan Winston, creature designs and things like that. But there is a shot where I think it's really well done, but they have this giant set that they used for the docking bay where the big fight is, and in the earlier scenes where they drive that tank thing through, and it loads onto the drop ship and everything. And it was probably a really big set, I assume, but it wasn't as big as it was supposed to be in real life. Obviously, that would just be absurd. And so they have this shot where they show the docking bay being like 4 times the size of the actual set, because it's all just a painting. It's like this big giant painting. And they pan the camera along this painting that shows how far away this other ship is, and therefore establishing size and depth and distance and all this stuff. And then it pans and pans until you're on the life-size model of the drop ship and the people. And I don't know for sure about this, but I believe what they did is um, they pan along the painting, and then there's these chains hanging from the ceiling, and they hide this spot where these chains are hanging down, and it's all done in camera. But I think that they pan onto a mirror where the characters are standing. So you have people standing in the foreground where the camera is, and then there's like these people that are being that you see as like 10 feet behind them, but they're probably like off camera on some other angle or something like that because of this thing. I don't know. Anyway, it's a very interesting shot. I think it works really well, and I think they pull it off. I really like it. I like seeing the special effects done in camera. I think it's really interesting.
One thing I noticed, the special effects, the creature stuff is definitely good. Some of the spaceship, like planet, like landing and stuff, some of that stuff, and the bolts of lightning and stuff was kind of reminiscent of Terminator, of the
Yeah.
first Terminator. Like I think he brought some of those same special effects people to this one, and that stuff is not, it's not amazing. I think it gets better later in the, like, yeah, so like the spaceship showing up from out of nowhere near the end. That part maybe is like slightly better, but some of that stuff, the stuff there is a bit like doesn't stand the test of time as much as the creature effect for sure. But it's passable. It's a movie from the 80s, so you're gonna have imperfect effects, but it didn't bother me too much.
I love the design that they put into all the little stuff. Like they say that I don't remember where I read this. Oh, I think it was on the Internet Movie Firearm Database actually. But they say that I think that James Cameron worked with the props people and stuff like that, because they created the pulse rifles that all the Marines use, and then also the smart guns, the big those guys who have the big the large heavy machine gun type things. And he, having worked on films before, he was like, familiar with the technology they use for steady cams. And he's like, well, why don't they use that technology for these people who have to carry these guns that are way too heavy to be carried normally? So they got like these guns with the steady cam arms on them. And then of course there's a ton of work went into mocking up all the other little rifles and stuff like that with the machine, the grenade launchers on them and stuff.
Yeah, they definitely go all out with the equipment, the sophisticated machinery and stuff. Like they had a lot of fun with that. It kind of reminded me of a better movie in my book, I think. I wonder how much I rated it, but like I feel like Predator is like, I guess would be very similar as far as quality, but I really feel like as far as like a commando unit going up against,
Yeah.
an invincible, and that's where all the whole discussion was, like a predator versus an alien, who would win. And
Yeah.
obviously a predator is a way more sophisticated creature than one alien. Yeah, I guess I rated it an 8, so I guess now they're pretty close together. But I don't know why, like the cast of characters in Predator and stuff, I feel like it would almost be a good pairing, like Aliens and Predator more so than Predator and the first Alien, because they're both like essentially commando units going up against like a very insurmountable foe. But for some reason, Predator is just a bit more fun. The characters are a bit more colorful, and maybe it's a bit more focused. And I don't know, maybe it's just being out in the open. The fact that Alien is always in the dark, mysterious, and like Predator is like in wide open. They're actually quite similar movies in a way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was enough people that felt very heavily about or strongly about that stuff. They started making those comic books about them and stuff, which eventually led to its own little franchise of movies.
Oh yeah, you mean as far as like the Predator versus Alien
Yeah, yeah.
thing?
And video games, I should mention.
Yeah, I guess Predator came out 87, so that was like a year after this. So it's funny. I'm sure it was even slightly influenced by it,
Hard to
uh,
say.
in a way, to some degree. I mean, I'm sure they're probably like in production almost at the same time. But
I could check. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I think Stan Winston worked on that one too.
on Predator,
I think so. I could be wrong.
I'm not sure. But oh yeah, best visual effects, Stan Winston. Yep.
For Predator?
Predator. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's the
He was doing all that great stuff. Anytime you see really great practical effects in the 80s or 90s, it's usually him.
Yeah, no, that stuff holds up. Like the physical stuff. It's like Jurassic Park too. The best moments in some ways. Jurassic Park is exactly when the combination of the two really melded really
Yeah.
well.
As long as you had enough money.
Yeah, but there's no doubt that at the same time you look at like, yeah, we'll talk about it when we don't have time to talk about Star Wars. But you look at like Yoda.
Yeah.
Yoda was way more effective as a Muppet than he was
Yeah.
as a digital.
He's got so much
creation.
heart
Yeah.
as a Muppet.
Yeah, exactly. Even though that could have been really bad. Like
Oh,
there's
it could
been
have been a
some
disaster.
80s movies where the Muppet thing is a bit too much. And the funny thing, the first time I saw Yoda is the order in which I saw those movies, I saw Return of the Jedi first before I saw A New Hope, and years before I saw Empire Strikes Back. I did not see them in the right order. And all I saw of Yoda is him in bed, barely speaking, or like in a dark, like, as in his house, little like cave. And I was like, oh, that's smart. Like if you're gonna have a Muppet like that, like you don't want like him be doing too much, you know. Because then I felt like then I watched later on Empire Strikes Back. It's like he kind of looks like a Muppet. He's like on his back. It's a bit too
But
much.
you unfortunately you never see him walking.
Yeah, but then again, I did later on in the movie, and there's the very clear like Muppets of the Ewoks, and I forgive that. So obviously, I should forgive. But yeah, I don't know. That stuff definitely there is something about the physical thing that just is easier to connect with than a digital character.
Yeah.
Jar Jar.
Yep.
Well, were there anything else? I guess as far as aliens that we didn't bring.
I don't think it needs to be necessarily kept in or anything, but I was just going to mention how I wanted to mention just like what a great cast it is.
Yeah, no, it's definitely
Yeah.
a good cast. Like it's like I said, like the comparison to Predator, it was a very colorful cast and it worked really well in its own way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was a bit too many of them, but I guess they wanted to like kill them off one by one, so they like they couldn't give enough screen time for all of them. But they definitely had all of them had something going on.
Yeah. Up until the Alien versus Predator movie came out, Bill Paxton was the only person who'd been killed by an alien, a predator, and a Terminator.
Oh, was he?
Uh, Also, it's kind of depressing to bring up that out of the cast of Apollo 13, Bill Paxton played Fred Hayes,
Oh yeah.
and he's the only one of the astronauts who's still. Fred Hayes is the only one of the astronauts who's still alive
Oh.
from the Apollo 13 mission, and Bill Paxton is also the only actor who has died.
Oh. Well, weird.
Fred, out of the main cast of that movie. So yeah, that's
What about
uh,
the Ed Harris guy? Wait, Ed Harris is that his name? Um,
oh yeah, I'm sure he's dead. Not Ed Harris, but
no, the guy he played. He was supposed to be a little older, right?
yeah, I was just talking about the astronauts, but
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, I can't imagine that guy's still alive. That would be incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
Gene Kranz was the character,
yeah,
the
yeah,
man in real life. Hmm.
man, and James Horner, the musician, the composer on that movie, is dead.
Oh, too bad.
We should stop letting talented Hollywood people fly in small planes. Uh, there seems to be a strong correlation there when it comes to I got to take a small plane and then you're dead and you're depriving us of all the great stuff that you would have done. So
Musicians too.
yeah, uh, a long time ago.
Oh my.
Well, there was I guess Harrison Ford had a near a close call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Uh,
he
Oh
almost
yeah.
small
yeah
He was
plane
flying
crash.
himself, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
yeah.
Also, I mean, Kobe Bryant, the whole helicopter thing.
Oh, that's sad. Yeah.
It's weird.
I not that it's a great movie or anything, but I do remember a very good moment, like a line in the beginning of Behind Enemy Lines or something like that. It's the one with Owen Wilson. He plays like a
Uh-huh.
combat pilot or something, a Navy
Yeah,
pilot, I think.
yeah, yeah.
Um, there's like some moment where he's done something wrong and they're basically kicking him out, just like in the beginning of Top Gun, where Goose is telling Maverick, like, "Hey, do you still have that number for that truck driving school?" Because basically they're gonna get kicked out and his career is over as a pilot, or something. And there's some moment where I think it's Owen Wilson or somebody said it doesn't seem that upset, basically, about what's happening to them, and the other character is confused by that, and his response is something to the effect of like, it's okay, I'm just going to get a job flying famous people around or something like that. And they say like, what? And he says like, do you know, he says something to the effect of like how much more great music there would be in the world today if there were just better pilots for musicians. But the movie's pretty forgettable.
Yeah, it was forgettable enough that I forgot that scene, but
And
yeah,
was a joke in Seinfeld at some point. I think it was like the
wasn't
episode where they have that baseball player, Keith Hernandez.
wasn't
And
that movie set in Ukraine?
which one?
I,
Top
I
Gun?
don't I don't know.
Sorry,
The
sorry.
other one.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was mostly gonna say like because I recently rewatched this episode, but George tells like Keith Hernandez, this former baseball player, he's like who befriends Jerry, and he tells them like with all these teams flying around back and forth, you would think like one plane would just like crash and like a whole team would get wiped out. So it's this idea that
Jeez.
like like sports teams are flying all over the country all the time to away games, and one crash is all you need, and you have like 20 athletes, multimillionaires that
Yeah.
like would just die, and it hasn't happened yet, but at the same time, it does seem like it happens more often that celebrities die in these like car crash, like plane crashes. I think JFK Jr. too, right? I think he had something
Maybe.
Yeah,
like with a crash.
yeah. JFK Jr. Died in a plane crash, and I believe he was piloting the plane.
Hmm.
By the way, Behind Enemy Lines was set in Yugoslavia, not Ukraine, so
Oh, okay.
I got that wrong.